Justin Knussi, welcome to the Without Limits podcast.
Thank you.
Appreciate you driving up this morning, mate. I know you're very familiar with the 4 a.m. wake up.
Yep.
As anyone that follows you on socials will know, you've become famous for over the last couple of weeks. But it means a lot for you to make the journey up here, mate. You're someone who's very close to the Marchon brand. People that follow us will certainly know who you are. You've come through our education system. You've become very close to myself, Jens, and the team around here. You're a friend as well as somewhat of a member of the Marchon team and the wider team. So having you on the podcast means a lot, and I'm looking forward to dive into everything to do with your journey into fitness, how you manage fitness alongside coaching, how you manage fitness alongside coaching, alongside fathering two beautiful children. And I think your story is one that will resonate with a lot of the young coaches coming into this space, looking to make it as a coach first and foremost, but then navigate their way through relationships, fatherhood, or even motherhood, right, for the female coaches that are listening. And I think you're a shining example of someone who's also adopted this social media age. To use the term influencer, we'll use it lightly in this instance, but you have a certain influence on social media that's given you notoriety for the right reasons, partnered with some of the biggest brands in the world, been on billboards in recent campaigns with the biggest brands in the world. So I think your rise to where you are now as a coach, as an influencer, and just as a good human, I think has been meteoric, but it's one that's come from a shit ton of hard work. And I want that kind of story of hard work to come through here, because I think that's often missed on the highlight reel of socials.
Sorry, I don't know what to say. It's very nice. I mean, I'm super grateful, to be honest. When you first mentioned about being on the podcast, I was like, so I ran to my wife and said, no, he's actually asked me. And I was freaking out, but now I'm here now. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Like I said, man, I remember the first call I took with you, actually, when you kind of applied for our mentorship. And I could tell you were sat in your gym back in Bath, and I could tell you wanted something more from your environment, from the people you wanted to surround yourself with, from the way you looked at life. And I could tell you're going to go on to bigger and better things. And I think you've just hit these milestones every time. Each year you can see that you're reaching that little bit further. And like I said, it comes from sheer determination, hard work. I don't think you've been gifted anything that you've achieved. So I mean, when it comes to, and people will testify to this in the team, when it comes to me benchmarking the sort of person that I would want associated with my brand outside of our coaching team, you're always the first person on the list. So you are here on merit, my friend.
Thank you. Let's
kick off with, what does Without Limits mean to you?
So Without Limits to me is quite specific to like my cognitive strength, right? My mental strength, because I'm always someone who physically can endure things. I can just do. But I've always had the mental block. And so Without Limits to me is being able to sort of like address and be aware of those limiting beliefs, right? So again, tying the Without Limits to limiting beliefs. And then changing the narrative around that and going, look, it's a thought, it's in your head. Now let's try and take that ceiling off, and then utilize your power to then go and take on. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
So really, like I said, Without Limits to me is a cognitive ability / skill to change the narrative when and if, because you're inevitably going to have limiting beliefs, to then unrack that roof and go forward.
You're quite in tune with that emotional side and that kind of mental side. Where did that come from? Why have you got that level of awareness?
I don't know. I think so the last 5 years, you can testify to this, my life has gone crazy the last 5-6 years, right? Like I left home at 16 and moved to the UK, and I've always had to sort of fend for myself, right? I've had to work for myself, and then I went to university, and friendship groups were always just this thing that never really existed for me. So I've always just been maybe a bit all over the ropes, emotionally, etc. So I think I've had to rein myself in and be in touch with these things a bit more because of the speed in which I've gone through life. Does that make sense? Mm. I got married last year. We had kids 2 years ago. Me and my wife met 4 years ago. I was only graduated university 5 years ago. So the last 5 years has just been chaotic. And I'll give my wife credit. She's been someone who always helps me sort of potentially address my emotions, makes me talk about maybe why I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. And I feel like that's been a massive key lock moment for me, is being able to address and feel my emotions and then move forward. Because I think I was someone who I didn't really ever do that. And I ended up just being an autopilot, but that autopilot never got me anywhere. You know?
We'll come on to talk about Shahzad because she's the unsung hero.
Yeah.
Mate, so coming over here at 16 years old, what brought you over to the UK?
So I was grateful with an opportunity to come over and play some football. I played football back home in Malaysia. I was doing pretty well there. And then a couple of academies, a couple of trials out here were like, why don't you come over and try? Managed to get myself into an academy. And at the age of 16 was playing there. And I was there for 2 years. Never really made much of a dent. Didn't really move up the years. Kind of just stuck there.
Which club is it?
QPR. And
you never talk about this?
No, because I don't. It was a great time in my life, but I understand that football is like, it's one of those sports where everyone's someone at a young age. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's like, I was just a number at that point, and it never really was like, I don't know. I think it was a weird one, football, for me. It was like, I loved it. But I think now that I've found more purpose in life, I don't actually know if I loved it as much. I actually played a football game for the first time in 10 or 11 years last Thursday, and it felt really good. But yeah, I never really talk about it because I didn't make it past 17, 17, 18. So then I got released and then played for a couple of teams like locally, and then was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And then at the time, my brother was living in London. He was at university in central London. So I lived with him, bunked with him, and fair play to my brother. He literally, imagine being an 18, 20 at the time, in university, having a bunk bed in your room and having your younger brother sleep on top of you. It's literally like the worst case scenario. I've been to university and that's the last thing I'd want. But my brother did that for me. He literally opened up his room and he was like, look, I'll get a bunk bed and you can just live with me. And then I just worked as a waiter in London until I was 20 for 2 years. Again, working early mornings, late nights, trying to earn money, earn cash. One, because I didn't like my parents giving me money. I always wanted to earn my own money. And then at 20, luckily at the time, the football club, QPR, they paid for BTEC. So I had an access into university. And yeah, so my mum was like, look, let's get you into university. And that's how I ended up in Bath.
Where does the work ethic come from to leave a football club at 18 and want to go and work in Bath for 2 years? Because again, it's unconventional. Yeah. It's unconventional when you talk to people who have got, coming across the world to play a Premiership or whatever they were at the time, Championship football club at 16 years old. People will hang on those stories, and will talk fondly, whether fondly or not. They'll talk about those stories as being part of their formative years and what went on to create who they are. You sort of suppress any conversation around that a little bit, but I think there's a work ethic that was forged in either the years prior to coming over or during that time that has gone on to be a big part of who you are now as a 28, 29-year-old. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I think I was just quite lost at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like when you make that transition, you don't really have a purpose. So you're there sitting in your brother's room, like, what am I going to do with my life? And that's actually where my first protocol of like training came in. I started going to the gym, and I was actually having this conversation with someone recently, and I think my work ethic comes from my dad. But in regards to suppressing the football side, I don't know how the two intertwine. But I think just generally getting up and doing something and having like a goal, not a purpose, has always been something I've been okay with. Like I've been like, as long as I can see my efforts turning into something, whether that's financial or whether that's, a larger end of goal or whatever, it's compiling and something's happening, then I'm happy to just keep going and doing. So for me, it was like, okay, football's over. Right, what can I do now? Right, go to the gym. Okay, cool. I can see the results happening. This is happening. My body's changing. I can go and get a job. I'll earn some money. I didn't know what job to have. Like I just went to one of those job centers and was like, can you get me a gig? And then obviously job centers are where you get shifted around. But I guess it's traits of who I am now. I went to one gig and they were like, we want to hire you. So it's City Cruises, the boats on the River Thames. Yeah. They do like a breakfast, lunch and dinner show. And this is where like all the dancing tends to ties, like the nighttime show, like there was a singer, and I used to like be a waiter just dancing and like getting tips, and it was cool. It was 2 years of that, and yeah, like again, going back to the work ethic side, like I just don't have a off switch button when it comes to work. And I think that's down to my dad, like love him to bits, but he's never really home. Gone early mornings and back late nights.
So these images of a Malaysian kid working on a boat on the
as tight as you can on the sleeves as well, the white shirt with the black vest.
I love it.
It's great.
I think whilst football might not have worked out for you, I think those disciplines and routine from sport, irrespective of what the sport is and whatever level it is, I think that they interplay into it later in life so much, whether we know it consciously or not. Okay, so 20 years old, your mum starts to put the pressure on you to go to university, and I've met your parents, right? Very articulate, well-educated, individuals. So I'm sure culturally as well, there's probably a bit of pressure on you to further your education when sport didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's only natural for parents to want to see their kids, succeed, right, and go on to achieve things that they feel as though they had the potential to. And probably working on a boat, serving alcohol and dancing probably wasn't your final calling. No. Why Bath? How did you end up there?
Potluck, really. I was like, cool, where can I go? Study sports and exercise science. Sports and social science. I wanted sports and exercise science, but I couldn't because of the BTEC, sadly. Again, going back to what we said around my parents, they exactly that. My mum actually gave me an ultimatum, even though I had, like I said, a chance to go out to football. She was like, you can't go unless you get straight A's in your GCSEs. So I was like, oh God. So I actually got to study and in order to play football. Luckily I had that to bank on, and I thought, okay, at least if I've got straight A's in GCSEs plus a BTEC, which isn't ideal, I might be able to get into sports and exercise science. No one would accept the BTEC for sports and exercise science. It just wasn't academic enough of a qualification. Does that make sense? So they had sports and social science, which I thought, okay, cool, I'll apply there, get into that. It was similar, and then potentially try and wiggle my way into a different course whilst I was in the university by proving some good results over the first year or whatever. It didn't happen, didn't work out. So I didn't get my sports and X, but it's fine. So that's why Bath. I literally applied to three sports universities. I think Loughborough was one of them in Durham, and I just chose Bath. I hadn't visited the city before, hadn't gone to the university. So that's the one.
How was your life at uni?
Different to my life now. Again, going back to what the lost sort of Justin, it was again, a completely new venture for me. And someone, again, really who loves diving deep into things. That's what I did. I didn't have a love for sport at the time. No football. Everyone was like, why don't you just come play football at the university? I also was then aware that rugby in Bath, if you play for Bath Uni Rugby, there's an option or potential for you to go pro again. It's still that in its infancy of academies that if you play university level, you can make it. Playing football at university is because you're washed up in the nicest way possible. You play university football because you like it. And I didn't like it at the time anymore. I was like, I've been a waiter for 2 years now. I've lost that side of me. I now go to the gym, so I'm just going to train and drink and study. Maybe not study.
Did you play rugby at uni?
I played a couple what do they call it? Jaeger type games, so the social team. But no, I never played any rugby. I was mates with all the rugby players back at uni.
Talk me through what training looked like at that stage of your life.
Solely bodybuilding. It was can I get bigger, look better? It was obviously at the Gymshark era, so social media had just started. I actually had my social media account back then, just posting pictures of me in stringers and just trying to get big and look like the guys, like Ollie Marchon in the physique apparel stands. But yeah, that was obviously that was that burst in fitness, wasn't it? And training outside of athletes and not traditional bodybuilding. It was like that men's physique, blowout. So I was sort of training towards that ideal physique, and it was all just that.
Did you see fitness as a vehicle for a career as a coach or as an athlete?
Not early on. I think obviously as social media started to blow up, I thought, maybe I could become a social media influencer and a Gymshark athlete. And what then was cool, that was definitely something I was training towards and trying to be. I didn't really have a professional career goal. My sports and socials course was really good. It actually talked a lot about society's integration with sports, fitness, and all that stuff, which I thought was really interesting because I never thought about it. I was always it's only about performance in sport and physical results, where actually how sports and fitness affects society was really interesting. I also credit maybe my ability to read fitness dynamic in society because of that course. But yeah, so no, I never really thought of staying in the fitness scene as a profession until I graduated. And I was like, what do I do? Because I don't want to work in a marketing agency. I don't want to work in, you know, a lot of people went on to work in sports marketing agencies and stuff like that. I was like, I don't want to do that. Online coaching was the thing. Chucked myself into that. Didn't have a social presence, so didn't really make anything of that. So I just joined the university gym as a personal trainer.
So when you were going through university, a 3-year course, right? Still no real understanding of what you're going to go on to do after.
No. So I was a bartender throughout university. Again, going back to work ethic throughout university, I worked as a bartender. I worked as a bouncer at clubs. Don't get me wrong, I'd go out on the piss all the time, but I'd also spend hours until 3 a.m. working behind a bar from first year all the way to third year.
So when I came across you, like I said, that first call, it was about your coaching career. And I started taking a closer eye on your social content and your story. A large portion of it at that stage, I think it was around that stage, was attributed to your relationship with your sister and your sister's kind of journey and story. Do you mind kind of unpacking that? Because I think that particularly in that early stage of you online, that was how you portrayed your message of what fitness meant to you.
Yeah, and it was literally the turning point. It was my one maturity, and potentially maybe the fact that I wasn't around with her. Like my sister's 17 years old now. So at the time she was 12 maybe. And I graduated university again. So there was a shift between my training style and a slight like loss in purpose there. Not purpose, but like I didn't know what I was doing with the bodybuilding anymore. I was like, what am I doing here? And then my sister being heavily disabled, not being able to walk, not being able to talk, and for 12 years of her life going to physiotherapy, occupational therapy, water therapy, like all these things to try and move her body. And I was there like just trying to get bigger biceps and chest. And I was like, well, there must be more to this. And then I obviously found like your socials. I found that good side of socials in the sense of like, this is what training can be for those who aren't athletes, but don't want to just like fill their t-shirts out. It's like, can we get a bit of both, right? Can we move our bodies, express movement? That also, so alongside me feeling really guilty and not feeling like I'm not doing my sister justice with my body because her body's not able and mine is, and I'm choosing to like, I'm not making my body disabled, but I'm not expressing my body to its full like movement literacy, right? Mm-hmm. So that was one aspect. And then again, like feeling like an athlete again, feeling like I was sweating, feeling like I was explosive, like those movements were starting to also toy on inside of me. And it's like, so those two combined were like, this is a cool like shift now for me. I can actually train for these reasons and like feel good about it, opposed to maybe not feeling good about myself.
How many days a week were you training at that stage, bodybuilding?
Probably like any day I wasn't hungover. In all honesty, any day I wasn't hungover.
And what did a typical split look like?
So it'd be about 6 days. It'd be push, pull, legs, push, pull, and then like arms. I don't need to do legs once a week.
You can tell.
I walked into that one. But yeah, so it would be like push, pull, and then legs, and then push, pull, arms, and then like a cardio session if I was cutting or whatever.
What was your sort of take on nutrition at that stage?
Like if it fits in macros, I've always been like a calorie counter. I try and just hit my calories. Not very potentially clued in regards to the underfueling side of things. I think I definitely always lent towards underfueling over being fueled. So I think even though I track macros now, it's a lot healthier from a consumption standpoint.
At that inflection point of moving from bodybuilding into, let's just call it functional fitness for the purpose of people understanding, what were the initial changes you began to make?
So the first thing I did was start Olympic weightlifting. Like I was like, so Bath is also is the home of British bobsleigh. So, you know, once I started seeing these pockets of fitness that was like, oh, this is what people do in the gym. There was actually a route into British bobsleigh in Bath. So I made friends with some of the guys that were chucking weight about there. I was relatively strong already, so I just had to learn the technique. It was not good technique, but I just managed to get some weight up. So I was training actually. You could say I was trying to get into the British bobsleigh team at the time. Never really made it a thing, but was like, cool, if I can power clean a lot, I'm naturally quite quick. If I can go through the testing and try and get into their scheme, this might be something. But if anyone knows the bobsleigh, there's not much money in bobsleigh. It's a hard living. And I didn't really have an attachment to it. So I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the best thing to be training for. But that was our first shift, is like going from purely hypertrophy training. I started doing power cleans. And that's probably why I'm pretty good at power cleans. Because
power cleans are gnarly.
Yeah, so I just started doing power cleans and power cleans and power cleans, because that's what bobsleigh athletes did. From power cleans was CrossFit, right? Because Olympic weightlifting. What else is there with Olympic weightlifting? Because I quite enjoyed that sport of CrossFit. And then that's how I then went into that.
We'll come back to sort of your approach to training as it sits now and that journey. I want to go back to your relationship with your sister and her disability. But you mentioned the term maturity. Do you think it was just a case of that you got to an age where you had a bit more perspective over the impact of her disability on her limitation on life? Yeah. You were just like, shit, I need to make sure that the capability that I have, I'm able to explore that without limits and start to push.
Yeah.
Because I suppose that is like a key point for a young male, is like when you come out of university, particularly if you've dossed around for a period of time, might have your grades, spent a lot of time drinking, whatever, you kind of do gain a bit of perspective now. You're like, shit, I'm in the big wide world. I've got to make money, I've got to get a living, I've got to start to provide for myself.
Yeah.
And there's this whole new, I guess, without any, but there's no barriers on you now, because you're out of that system of education and university, that you've really got to start to mature, to use that word again. What is it that about your sister's story then that you were able to use in how you could start to build your personal beliefs around fitness, and how you could then start to share that with the immediate people within Bath?
Yeah, like it was exactly what you said. I think finishing university, not really having anywhere to go, anything to do, and seeing the impact in which her disability was having on her, just through her emotions. Like, I was obviously calling them a lot more, my parents calling her, because didn't have friends, I had friends, but everyone left at university. So this is that pivotal point where I'm now technically alone in a city that I've been in, but is a campus university. So you're not really part of society in Bath, right? You're a uni student. So that transition was quite hard. So I'm starting to talk with my family a lot more. I'm starting to see the impact of my sister. See how she's starting to feel emotionally, because she can express emotions. And then also like the impact it's having on my family. Right? Like, it's hard. She's a grown woman now, and like I said, she's doing everything in her wheelhouse, whether she wants to or not. Obviously, my parents are bringing her to physiotherapy in school, but she's doing everything every day. She goes into therapy to try and move a bit better. Maybe not even to walk on her own. Do you know what I mean? Just to move a bit better. So it just really started to ring strong that like, our efforts in the gym, like the way I started to frame it for myself was like, the gym is my physiotherapy, right? Even though I've got nothing wrong with me, I can start to see how this is going to impact me and those around me and my loved ones if and when they come into my life, if I do this right now. So again, when we talk in terms, I hate the term, but holistic approach, right? And thinking further down the line, I was like, cool, can I start to learn, educate myself, so I do myself proud and I don't beat myself up for being guilty for doing X, Y, and Z in the gym, and my sister's doing everything to try and move, because it was a guilt thing. It was. I felt really guilty. Like I'd watch her move, and I was like, and I'd be in pain, and I'd have like knee aches and stuff like that. And it's like, well, I'm not doing myself any justice here. And she's there trying to not be in pain. Or I don't know if she's in pain, but trying to, move. So yeah, I guess it was a bit of a guilt and awareness thing.
Yeah, I think it's just such a powerful message, which is I wanted to bang it home a little bit, because I think unless we're close to someone that has a disability like that and and can't express the movement, or unless it's a situation where it's too late and someone very close to you has that stripped away from them for whatever reason, it is very much like a use it or lose it approach. And me and my brother talk about it quite regularly now, about our parents, and wanting to just go and pick them up every day and bring them to the gym at 3 p.m. when the gym's quiet and just do some training with them, because it's just so important that people open their eyes a little bit more to what the gym can offer you outside of just training for aesthetics and training for just to look a certain way. Because
the two can coincide. They really can. But like you say, we were sold, in a world of fitness, we're sold that you have to do this way, you have to do this that way. And it's like, and it's I hate it, because it actually is a bit more of a relaxed approach, right? But it's like, it is this awareness of how can we implement all these things and actually have that balance. But I don't like that word as well. But You know what I'm trying to say? Is like, we can tick all these boxes. It does take a bit more discipline. It does take a bit more like structure in your lives, but you can move well, look good, feel good, you know?
As you started coming into coaching then, like I said, I've referenced that call we had a couple of times. As you came into coaching, you mentioned you went online, and for the coaches that listen to this and people that are in the industry or looking to get into it, what were you weighing up in your mind of how you wanted to build your coaching brand and how you wanted to build your coaching business? Was it influenced by that world of Gymshark and the people online that you'd seen going into online coaching? Was it anyone around your local town that you'd seen and go, actually, I want to go under that person's wing. I want to try and emulate the success they might have had. How do you think about going from post-grad, done the university thing, coaching, building business?
Well, so the way it worked out was I graduated, I got a job at the university gym, which was a 0-hour contract. So you do gym floor work and then they'll give you clients and then pay you an hourly rate for the client. Didn't have really didn't have any tie, or like no one knew who I was in this space. So no one was like coming to me for PT. Had a couple of clients from the gym given to me. So I started coaching them. But in order to earn more money, I was just doing spin classes. I was doing like 10, 12 spin classes a week to try and earn more money, because they obviously had classes in the gym as well to run. So it was a mix between all those things as like my main sort of form of income. And then, so I just then saw all these Gymshark athletes like doing online coaching. So I marketed myself and was like a transformation coach, right? Because at this time I was on that bridge between, like you said, training for aesthetics and then doing the functional fitness stuff. So it was like, I've just spent so much time here. Let me just do that because I know how to manage people's calories and get them to do hypertrophy. So I went down that route and it just complete flop. Like it just didn't work. One, because I didn't have a social following, but two, because I didn't really have systems and process behind it in regards to the online coaching. And that's something I still to now this day don't really do, because I respect that service too much to tap into it.
Do you think you're unique in your work ethic, by the way?
I don't know. I know a lot of hard workers. And like in today's day in social media, you see, I guess everyone documents their life. So you see a lot of hard work. I don't think I'm unique.
The reason I ask is because we were talking at breakfast, myself, Mass and Jens, about the days of apprenticeships. And I spoke to a previous guest on this, the days of apprenticeships for coaches, the 0-hour contracts, the coaching, the spin classes, just to get in front of new people that could potentially be clients. And those days of learning your trade on the gym floor seem to have gone. Coaches don't really seem to want to do 4 or 5 hours back to back anymore. If they do it back to back, they think they're overworked. Do you think I'm right in that statement?
Yeah, I think so. I think
because you're not, you're probably you're that generation after me, right?
Yeah.
You're what, 28 years old?
28, yeah.
Yeah, so you're still fairly young in the grand scheme of things, right? Within the coaching world, but you seem to have had an upbringing and an apprenticeship in coaching that's very similar to the people that you circulate with.
Yeah, I've always been a bit of an in the moment learner. So I think I gravitate towards just doing things to learn. Maybe that helps, right? Because whether it's paid or not paid, I'll do it because I'm going to learn something from it. And yeah, I think maybe today in the fitness industry, because there's so many pioneers in the space that showcase their lifestyle, I think people think they can skip a step. And that's why I don't do online coaching now, because I still have that same mindset. It's like me coaching people in person on the gym is going to benefit me more to becoming a better coach. So why am I going to stop that? Do you know what I mean? Why am I going to jump ship and start online coach because I've got a bit of a social media following? Like, to me, I need to feel like a good coach for my own sake. Like, I need to feel like I'm still learning. Not saying you can't learn from online coaching, because you can, but there's a few barriers in there from like, communication and all that stuff, like emotion. There's less emotion online, when you feel people's stories and feel people's struggles in person and are able to navigate it with them, you learn a lot more on how to coach people. I do think people forget that now in the gym space, because everyone thinks you can do fitness online.
Yeah, it's a big one for us, obviously, with both the Marchon brand, but also PFCA and trying to educate coaches, and also just get coaches to paint a picture of what it looks like in 10, 15, 20 years for them as a coach, and how can they still be relevant, and how can they learn their trade to have the expertise to still be able to coach people when current trends or social media goes down or anything, all these current things they've got in their arsenal that can help promote their business, when they're not there, how do they still provide a service that is going to bring home a living for them? And I think it's lost now. And I wonder, even with coaches we bring into this business and with coaches that we educate, I wonder whether we can ever get it back.
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because like you said, you have to play both sides of the cards. It's like social media, technology is the way in which the world's going, but you never know when that's going to end or how it's going to change, or like all the things we're building now on that realm might be irrelevant because we progress too fast technology wise. So you never know. But all you can sort of say and hinge on is like that the in-person and the personal aspect of coaching is really what has and will always be the solid. Does that make sense? And I think, like I said, I have too much respect for the online space, because if it's done well and right, which Marchon is doing, it's insane, because you get all of this and all of this. But if you're an individual identity and you haven't done that work, the prerequisite work beforehand, you don't have a good product.
At what stage did coaching, because there's a fine balance with many athletes that become coaches. At what stage of coaching and wanting to be an athlete, when did that dynamic change?
What was that, sorry?
At what stage did that athlete dynamic start to you go from being this? I think bobsleigh was the last thing that you really maybe applied yourself to.
I never actually got into bobsleigh, by the way. I was just training for it. Yeah.
I mean, irrespective, a lot of us that have come into coaching have come through because of our own story of what health and fitness or the gym or what sport had given to us. And for a lot of coaches, and I think it's right to walk the walk, right? You still got to train, you've got to show up, you've got to be able to provide that inspiration for people. But at what stage did coaching become a career for you, and the training facilitate that rather than coaching facilitating your ability to train and be an athlete? Yeah,
I think it definitely was. It's hard because I wouldn't know. I've only spent time. I've probably spent 2-3 years of my life identifying as an athlete up till now. Before that, like I said, I was training for somewhat of a performance. Like you said, whether we call it athlete or not, I wouldn't have identified as an athlete. But the last 3 years, I'd say that I really did try to push my CrossFit quite hard. And ever since my first child, that kind of, I guess, was the fork in the road for athlete and coaching. Like, I was starting to potentially see traits of, I'm now coaching to try and become a better athlete. And which one of those roads is better for me and my family? Obviously the coaching one, right? And the business and the work. So I had to have that honest conversation with myself and go like, right, are you training too much? What is that serving you now? Because then this goes full circle back to the conversation about me and my sister in a different form, right? It's like, are you now training completely out of like your deep reasons for superficial reasons? So then once you understand what you actually need from this training, you can then redivvy and redistribute your time and then go towards the other road.
And so you as an athlete, just for the listeners, what did you perceive being an athlete at that stage could go on to?
I had the goal of trying to make like CrossFit semifinals. I think that was something that I felt was realistic. But I'd never, again, I was just too much in between the two identities that I never was able to fully sink my teeth into trying to get to the semifinals. Like, it's a full-time sport now, CrossFit, So I would never give up my coaching to do it. But then I was like, oh, maybe I should give up more coaching to do it. So I was always, for the last 2 years, I've been battling those two roads, like just like dipping my toes between each one, being like, let me try balance this out a bit more so I can train more. Let me try balance this out so I can coach more. I never really was like, I'm dead set on doing this. And I think because I had a child, you can't really just drop your coaching and go, I'm going to go train for a sport that might not put food on the table.
What impact did Tally have on the dynamic of you? How old were you when she was born?
26.
Talk me through that.
It's crazy. Just crazy. Like, again, just as impactful as my wife was to me, same thing as the children. Like, they just open up my ability to a higher version of myself that I don't know. Like, it was crazy. It was chaotic. I didn't really know what to do, work-wise, training-wise, parenthood-wise. Like, it's your first child. And going back 3 years, I'm always quite I say selfish person because I had the time to do what I wanted to do, but I'm now in a position where I'm not able to. And my wife's quite maternal. She's a midwife by trade. So she not that saying it was easy for her, but she naturally always knew she wanted children. She knew that was the route. And I knew I wanted children, and we had that conversation, but it did happen a lot quicker than we expected. Like, it happened before we got married. So it all just sort of was a bit quite quick. And I think I handled it well. But yeah, it was just very overwhelming.
What changed? Talk me through the dynamic of what changes in your day as a full-time coach and athlete.
So as a day, I went from coaching like 35, close to 40 hours of PT a week. And I started taking back a couple evenings. This was after our first child. So just a couple evenings, because Jens was, at the time, was someone I spoke to quite a bit around parenting. And he was like, story time, bedtime, bath time. These are all like really big moments, when they're young. So try as best as can to facilitate your hours to be there for those times. And as long as you can do that, you're winning. So that was the first thing I did, was like, cool, can I be home as many evenings as possible? First time around, I would only happen like twice a week. Like, I was home in the evenings twice a week. So better than none, because I would work from 6 till 8, Monday to Friday. And then I had no work on the weekends. So that was my working schedule, was 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., 3 to 4 times a week. And then like 6 a.m. till like 4 or 3 p.m., 2 times a week.
And any changes around training?
At the time, no, I was managing to balance it a bit more. Obviously 6 till 8 with a 3-hour window of training in the middle. So I'd work morning and then work evening. And then that became quite overwhelming, quite tiring. So then as she like hit just over 1, I started to just sack off some of those evenings in coaching completely and just work the morning and then go and train. And I was still doing CrossFit at the time. So still in the gym for about 2 or 3 hours trying to tick all those CrossFit boxes.
How do you deal with like guilt and things as a young father?
It's hard. Guilt was one of those things we have to live with and learn to manage. Like, I think if you can be honest with yourself and like ask yourself some, if you can solidify, like, I have a few questions that I ask myself, like, was I there for dinner? Am I doing more than I need to do in the gym? Am I doing work that's not necessary? If I can answer those 3 questions and all of them allude to I'll answer them in the sense. So if I answer them correctly, I can go home, even though I'll still feel the guilt, I can go home feeling slightly less guilty because I've chosen to work less. It's because my natural instinct would be to do more work than is needed. I've got some emails I could do tomorrow, but I'm going to do them tonight. Have I chosen that route, or have I chosen to go home? Cool. If I can tick those boxes and say yes to them, I know I'm doing as much as I can for both sides of my family. Because I know, like, again, my wife is super, super big on like emotional, like health of the children and being home and all these things that lay their foundations emotionally from a young age. So it's like, me naturally is like, I'll just go and work, like, so I'm trying to like learn to do the other stuff.
Charlotte is alleged, if she does listen to this, big up yourself, Charlotte. She's had a massive impact, obviously, in your life, pre-kids and post-kids. Do you two like actively sit down and talk about like how to parent the kids, what you need to be doing more of, less of, like?
Yeah.
Because obviously in social media, you two look like such a power duo.
Yeah.
Is there like a structured, conscious way of you two like working through this stuff? Because I get asked this stuff all the time. It's like, how do you manage the kids and how do you manage to make it all look so easy? Like, I don't. Lauren knows of a lot of it, but we don't really necessarily, I think, as regularly as we should, talk through some of those things.
Yeah, I think we should be better. I don't think we don't sit and talk and be like, let's navigate this and like have like ways of doing it. I think like many other couples, she puts up with it until she's like, this is now getting out of hand. We need to have a conversation. Or a little yell at each other, right? And then again, being the reflective person that I am, she'll also vouch for this. It might end well there and then, or it might be like, I need to go and train and sort my head out, and then I'll come back and I'll reflect on what you've told me, and then we'll come to a conclusion on how we can manage this. And it's always the same similar topics, and I think it's similar topics for a lot of families. It's just like, are you home enough? Are you present when you're with the kids, etc. And like when you've got minds so busy at work, it's hard to then go back into that dad role. So it's like she's very good at like letting me I'm going to say comfort myself with work and training, because that is my safe space. And then when and if I'm just like getting too like pulled towards that realm, she then pulls me back out. And then we have that, like I said, it's not like we need to have a monthly sit down and talk about how we're getting on. She kind of like she'll navigate and be like, tendencies are happening. Let's try and like, come on, you need to be home a bit more, or, you know, you're on your phone too much when you're with the kids. Like she'll tell me straight.
What are the bits of parenting that you find most difficult, mate? Because we live in an age now where, you know, you're a content creator, you're someone who is on social media a lot and needs to be, create your own content, and it's great content. You're someone who's coaching long hours. If you do make a commitment to staying in the in-person coaching world, then you know that you need to be in a certain place at a certain time, and you don't have the freedom of just doing your check-ins and writing online programs. And you're also someone that loves to train, because it's like you said, it's been a big part of your life through football and into fitness. What are the things that inherently you fall short on when it comes to, you know, parenting?
Yeah. I think it's time, and I always first thing I say is time, but it's not. I'm not as present as I probably should be when I'm with the kids. And like you say, it looks like it is on social media, and I am actively super present, but there are still moments where I could be more present. Do you know what I mean? And that is where I think I could be better. Like I couldn't walk into a room and put my phone away and not touch it for 2 hours, you know? Even though I might be super present and like check my phone here and there, I couldn't do that. And like, I want to be able to do that. So that's where I feel like I potentially fall short, is I still maybe am not as present as I am, even though I do put presence as like a main priority already. And I am super present when I could do more. But I think that's just maybe my characteristics of anything. Because like I was having this conversation with Charlotte, I said, I'm home most evenings. I'm doing bath time and bedtime most evenings. Like I'm living a dream here. A lot of dads don't get to do that. You know what I mean? So why do I still feel like I'm not doing enough? And then I go back to those few questions that I ask myself.
Yeah, I think it's normal, man. And the only reason that, you know, I was keen to ask this is because I think we're very similar in that sense. Like I feel as though I'm certainly learning to be more present. It's always going to be a work in progress, but I think that is part of the game, right? You're always going to feel as though you should and could be doing more. Yeah.
You're building new habits. These are habits that you've never had to do before. Do you know what I mean? Like we habits are stuck. They're stuck in you. They're ingrained in you. And when you and myself for years have been training, working, building, those habits are like seamless. We just do them, right? So it's like when you come in with these new set of habits that are really impactful to a person's life, a child's life, it's really hard it's really hard on yourself. Like it's hard to implement, and then 2, it's hard to like realize that if I don't implement it, this is going to have impact like further down the chain on my children. So it's not like again, when it works now, it's like, do I make the deal? Do I not make the deal? It's like, I got to make the deal, because if I don't, it's going to have impact on the kids. But like, it's a fucking hard deal to make, because I can't just pick up these habits and just do them. Yeah. And like I say, I feel like I said it on one of my videos recently. I beat myself up for feeling like this. Some days I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'd rather train than take care of the kids, you know? And it's like, you feel horrible. Yeah. But you just got to keep building on it, you know, and keep working on it. And if you can have that mindset on a lot of things, you'll be fine.
I think there's someone that's telling the story incredibly well on your socials, which we'll come on to in a second. But how's that dynamic been more recently, having your son brought into the world, Remy? Yeah. How's the dynamic been when you went from 1 to 2?
You think you could get crazier, more chaotic. Obviously seeing traits change in our daughter because of a new child coming into the house. Like that's one of the biggest things at the moment in our household, is like managing her and her emotions and her feeling, because she can't process her emotions. And again, something I maybe struggle with is maybe potentially react a bit too much. Like I forget that she doesn't know how to manage her emotions. Then the child in me doesn't manage my emotions. Do you know what I mean? So again, this is where my wife comes in and goes, Justin, you can control your emotions. She can't. So let's try and stay calm and control her emotions. So that's currently the biggest dynamic, is just managing her, making sure she feels, you know, really loved and welcome in the household with this new boy coming in. And work-wise, I guess I'm in a privileged position, obviously with social media doing quite well at the moment. I've been able to claw back a bit of time from the gym floor. Still coaching about 25 hours a week on the gym floor, because like I probably will never do less than that if I stay in the one-to-one world. So I've been able to be home a bit more. And like I said, now that I've got that time, I think that's maybe where that crossroads happens again. It's, I've given myself more time, but I still feel as bad, or maybe not as present. It's like, now that I've got more time, can I make sure my presence matches that time as well?
Yeah. Let's come on to social media a little bit more. So I think for people who are listening who, you know, potentially want to be more influential and have the kudos and also the brand alignments that you've afforded yourself, but then also people who consume social media and follow influencers to know what it's like, the mindset of someone who's influential now, because you're someone who I think is very protective over the brands that you work with. So you're very protective over your audience, so that the brands that you work with are people that mean a lot to you, and you know you've been using their products a lot, and you see great benefit in it. But equally, you are deliberately trying to grow your social media following. I say trying to grow, so you're trying to grow your credibility in that space, so that you have this notoriety with some of those brands.
Yeah.
When was the first time that you deliberately went after trying to be more influential and pick up followers, work with brands?
I'd say, I'm trying to think of a specific moment. The thing is, I've always created content around training in life. Like, I've had this Instagram account, which used to be called Knussi Lifts, back at university, since the waitering days. You know, it was my personal account. So it's just evolved in regards to how my life has changed as well, and then sharing my training and my life on it. So I've always created similar content. I've just got better at creating content and editing, etc. Because I still do all that in-house. So I think maybe potentially when I started to get interest from brands, that I was like, oh, I can make something of this. I never really got many brands come at me, and I still don't. I don't think I do, you know? My first big gig was with Lululemon, and that was 2 years ago. And I guess from that, I was like, okay, well, I probably should put a bit more effort into this, you know, and see where it takes me. But then even since then, I only work with 3 brands, you know, and like for me, that's more than enough. And I guess I always say I'm in a privileged position because I work, I have a job, I have a business, and this is all just still fun. And if I can monetize from that, that's great. But I still will just do my job as my main source of income. Because as soon as I'm starting to chase money on that end, I feel like I'm just going to lose myself, and also, like I said, the buy-in of everyone that follows me. Like, could they follow me because hopefully it's because I'm an honest person and I only share my life and what works for my life and what I do in my life. And as soon as, like I said, I'm starting to try and get money on that side, I feel like that's where it all goes P-tong.
What does your mum and dad think about you being on the billboards of Lululemon around the world?
Yeah, pretty cool. She went to I think they were on a cruise, and literally every country that they stopped at, they went to Lululemon to take a picture next to the billboards. It was a really, really cool moment, and they're super proud. Yeah, they're really, really proud of it. I think something I actually struggle with is trying to make my parents proud. You know, they live far away from me. I'm the unconventional child. I'm the child that doesn't have a wage. I'm like a salary. I'm the child that had children before marriage. I'm the child that, you know, isn't on a desk job. It's very different to my brother. He's an amazing person, but we're completely different characteristics. And I feel like potentially maybe my work ethic comes from also wanting to just make them proud. My mom doesn't really say much like that she's proud of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I've heard those things from her mouth, but she shows me she loves me. So it's like, yeah, it's a hard one.
Sounds like my old man.
Yeah.
So for people who maybe want to know what the secret sauce is when it comes to content creation and working with those brands, is there anything that you would, you know, any knowledge that you can pass on to people? What do you think works?
I think you just got to stay true to what you're doing. I think stories are a big thing, right? Don't just tell a story that's true to you, and just document it in a way that's easy for you. Because as soon as I think it's easy now seeing content, like super refined content, and like, I got to be filmed by a pro photographer. It's got to be edited really clean cut. And it's like, maybe save that, because that's really time consuming and it's just really overwhelming. If you actually want to tell a story, tell it off of your own phone and edit it yourself. Like, make it easy and accessible, because as soon as you start to tarnish your relationship with creating content, that's where, again, I think it goes wrong, right? And people try to move down that ladder too quick, creating really refined content, which is so cool to the consumer, 100%, and people watching. But is it safe for you? Is it a sustainable way of creating content for you? I've done it before. My socials blows up when it's just stuff I film on my phone and edit on my phone, you know? So I think if you're starting on your journey, don't feel like you have to just go and create super refined content straight away. Because the content, the value in the content is down to how you share, like what you're sharing, opposed to how it looks, right? And then, yeah, if your stories like sound and honest to you, then just create and be consistent. Like it's something's going to land. And if it doesn't land, why stop? And I think that's something I always told myself is like, why would I stop? What am I guess because I wasn't chasing the influencer status, I was like, I don't care if there's likes on this photo, so I'll just post it. I post 3 times a day sometimes, and I still do. And I have people saying like, oh, it's not good for traction or likes, and I'm like, I want to post 3 times today, so I will.
Yeah, I think that's what's also super unique, right? Because you kind of stumbled upon this.
Yeah,
you stumbled upon working with some of the biggest brands, and like such a great following, right? But also a very bought-in following. You can see that the interaction that you get is one where people are genuinely following along for the story, but you've done it by mistake.
Yeah,
right? It's not intentional like a normal content creator.
Yeah, yeah. Like I obviously you have the few bits of content that you need to do for a contract here and there, but majority 99% of my content is just, like I said, just creating because I was training and I felt like I wanted to share this and this workout or this is happening in my life, you know, and seeing how all those factors are then affecting what is an end goal. Like who knows what the end goal is, and I don't either. And I think that's maybe the cool thing. People are like, well, this kid keeps turning up. I don't know what he's turning up for, but he's still just training and he's still just parenting and he's still just working, you know? And I think that's a cool thing to be doing.
The content creation or the content that you've been creating recently, where you're documenting your day, kind of like this mini vlog type style. How much time does it take to fucking set your camera up and get each shot?
Yeah, that's quite a bit. So we're talking about those 4 a.m. reels where I timestamp everything from when I wake up till when I get home, either a work day or weekend with the family. Those are actual timestamps. So I will leave the house at like quarter past 4, half 4, and I'll get back in the house at having done a 45, 60-minute session and a 10-minute drive there and back, and get in the house by like 5:30. So it doesn't really, again, because my life is pretty routine, like I know where I'm driving to, I know where I'm filling up my bottle, I know where I'm going to be parking, I know all the little crevices, I can just pop my phone and just run back. It takes seconds. Like it probably adds, maybe I'll time it one as a video, it'd be quite interesting. Probably adds 15 minutes to my day, to that morning.
You mentioned your routine is so dialed, and I think that's very evident. Someone that has to work and get to the gym sometimes twice a day, parent and everything. How big is routine to you, and is there any nuggets around a routine that you think would be worth sharing? Do you have a morning routine, a nighttime routine?
Yeah, so I have a morning routine, and I think, again, I always say this to anyone who asks me a question around, what time do you sleep or whatever. The 4 a.m. is cool and it works for me at the moment of time. It might not work for me and my family in 2 weeks. You never know, right? Like I was having this conversation with you around sleep with the kids. My kids are sleeping well, so I can wake up at 4 a.m. Most of the time they won't be up till 7. So I'm cool to leave the house there without stress on Charlotte. So that's fine. If and when that changes, my morning routine will change, vice versa. So having that ability to flex on it. But from like outside of time standpoint, I always start my day with a cup of coffee. Pros and cons to that, I know, but it's habitual. I like making coffee. It's the only time in the day I will have at home to make a coffee at my coffee machine. So I'm like, well, I'm going to do that then. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I get home in the evening, I can't have a coffee then. So I'll have that coffee in the morning. I'll have my hydration and I'll have like multivitamins and creatine. Those are my like staples. Sometimes I'll have workout fuel or any sort of pre-workout if I'm training that I feel like maybe a bit more lethargic that morning. But most of the time, the caffeine and the hydration serves me more than enough to sort of get in and go to work. Outside of that, I always bang music in my car, like super loud. My neighbors are 80 plus, so they can't hear it, so it's fine. When I get in the car, I just slam that music up. And I just try to get myself hyped up, right? Through music has always been something I really enjoy. So as soon as I walk into the gym, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to coach my clients or train myself, and my energy is where I need it to be. So I really try and manipulate that with music, and like I dance on the streets and stuff like that. So I just try and keep energy levels high in the morning, and hopefully that then transitions through the day.
I'm glad you mentioned the dancing piece because, again, people that follow your stories, I mean, you don't do it as frequently as I'd like anymore, but what was that for? Because, again, it's just like, it shows someone that is clearly very busy in their day, but they've got the time to put their camera there and light up everyone else's day by dancing stupidly in the street.
I think I just like, I don't like humiliating myself, but I like showing people that humility is actually good. Like it's my power because I can have a bit of like, I don't know, I feel like hopefully people feel the same way with me. Is like I don't have a wall that they can just talk to me, you know? And I guess I wanted to showcase that I'd be dancing or like two-stepping on the street anyway, walking into work. So if someone else needs a bit of a pickup in the morning because they got to start early or they're feeling a bit tired, then why not just share a bit of energy? Charlotte is, again, the queen of it. She'll be the first person to like bang on music in the morning in the kitchen and start dancing, you know, and that energy is infectious to me and others around her. So I was like, cool, can I try and apply that in my socials?
Do you ever get any hate?
No, actually. Not from the dancing. I don't think I've ever had hate on the dancing.
On socials in general?
Yeah. Not in general. The only hate I've had recently is the crying video, which was pretty crazy to see. Like I had me crying at my wedding, and I sat on that video until our anniversary recently, and I posted it. And yeah, there's still a lot of people saying men can't cry, you're wet, all these things. And it just goes one ear and the out. I know that going viral has its pros and cons. More often than not, more cons than pros. But you know what? James Smith, who you've had here as a guest, mentioned this, and I always think of it because I'm on social media. It's like I might get the numbers wrong, but he says if you walk into a room with 10,000 people, you'd be lying to yourself if all 10,000 people are going to like you. Do you know what I mean? So like that, I always think about that. I go, I can only be the best person I can be. And if someone decides to not like what I'm putting out or dislike me, then it's fine.
Do you feel they need to respond to it or not?
No. My wife sometimes does. She enjoys it because she doesn't. She's not on social media. Like she is on social media, but she only uses it like I think she's in our married life. She's probably posted like 5 times. Do you know what I mean? Like so, she uses it generally because she just likes poking at people. And then she's like, if they're gonna poke you, I'll poke back at them. I usually respond with really positive comments. So I have quite a set thing I say. I usually say usually call them the wrong name. So if it's someone Pete, I usually say, hey Dave, thanks for taking your time to comment. I know your time is value. I really value your opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion on social media. And I hope you have a really nice day. And I think that plays to the algorithm. People really like it. So they like my comment. More people comment. And yeah. So if I do respond, it's usually in that sort of like way.
Did you post the video of you crying at the altar to go viral, or do you post it because...
I didn't. I posted it because I thought it was a really big moment for us. And I know you saw it live and a lot of friends and family saw it live and reiterate how ugly of a crier I am. But again, going back to that humility side, I'm actually quite proud that I broke down in that way. And like, obviously I didn't ask the videographer to film me or whatever. Like he just caught that moment, you know what I mean? And that's why, like I said, I didn't post it straight away because I was like, oh, this is a really cool moment. Maybe I might not never post it. But funny enough, when we did get married and the videographer sent it to us, Charlotte was like, if you post that, this is going to go viral. And I said, oh, whatever. And she literally, we were having dinner the other night. She said, what did I tell you a year ago? So yeah.
I mean, I think it's the beauty of you, not just you in person, but also on socials. And what's so endearing is because you are, unapologetically yourself, but it's that fine balance between being this built like a Greek god, trains really fucking hard, but you also show this side to you that is like vulnerable, open, very caring. I think that's why people are so drawn to you.
Yeah, I again, it maybe was something I had to work quite heavily on. And it's like, I think awareness is something I say all the time. And I used to just never be aware. I used to play ignorant to these feelings I maybe had, right? And again, it created this washing machine effect in my life. I was like, well, I'm doing nothing. Because I feel like if I can deal with what I'm feeling, I can then move on from it. Whereas I just never used to do that. So it just allows me to sort of just keep that continuous growth that I'm chasing. Yeah.
Have you started to direct your audience now or your content towards dads that are kind of going through the same stage of life? Or
obviously it's just hard because I document my life and my life is so much dadding at the moment. So it's like, I'm not necessarily doing it because there are more fathers who follow me or parents who follow me. I'm doing it because it's just, it would be unauthentic of me to like not create that content and just do training, when actually training is like an hour and a half of my life at the moment, you know? And if I'm creating stories and you know, putting up stories all day long, and it's not all going to be just gym. And like, people might follow me for just the training, and that's cool, but they got to be along for the ride for all the other stuff, like me crying at the altar because I want to post it, you know? And like, again, like people will say, well, it's not your demographic. Like, why are you posting that? Like, people just want to see you topless training. It's like, I want to post me crying at the altar.
Yeah, it's a powerful position to be in, to be able to post whatever you want on your social media, because, you know, yes, it does bring home some bacon for you, but at the end of the day, like your job is to coach people, and social media is an outlet that you've been able to monetize.
But I think also that confidence around the brands I work with. I have a small couple of brands I work with, and they make me feel confident to post what I want. You know, no brand, I'd never feel like if I work with a brand, I can't post this, right? Because I know that all the brands I work with support me and who I am and what I'm doing in life. And I think that's really important. Again, going back to what can help like people is make sure you choose the right brands that align with your life and what you want to do.
Have any brands ever reached out and kind of asked things that you think are, you know, outside of what you'd be comfortable doing?
No, none really, to be honest. I think there's obviously brands that like, I'm like, well, where's this come from? Like, this just wouldn't like fit into my lifestyle. But no one like that I've been like, oh, I'd like to work with. And then they'd be like, well, we want X, Y, and Z. No, nothing like that.
What does, let's fast forward to right now. So what does training look like for you? How do you maintain a physique like yours and stay, you know, on the line of being able to perform whenever you're ready?
Yeah. So obviously with, you know, 3-4 years of CrossFit, I've got a bank of skill in the CrossFit sort of scene that I can lean on. So as of recent, I've sort of shifted from CrossFit training to more just strength and conditioning with a hypertrophy sort of like add-on. So the game program, Marchon. And this just allows me to sort of look at my training simplified. Like I go in, I know what I'm doing. It's going to take me 45 to 60 minutes and I can get in, get out. And again, it ticks all the boxes. I'm getting stronger. I'm going to hopefully grow if my eating's right. And I'm still working my aerobic system. Going back to, again, why I made this shift to that training originally, or this start away from bodybuilding, because I'm not going to say to this specific training, just away from purely bodybuilding. It still rings true to that. Do you know what I mean? I'm still moving well, moving through different movement patterns, training my aerobic base, all while still hopefully looking the same, if not better over time. So that's it. So that's gain is 5 times a week, right? And then I'll probably do like a couple of those 4 a.m. cardio bits in and around that, just stuff that, again, maybe more for my headspace.
Do you feel like competition or a goal in the calendar is needed for someone like you or someone looking to still be able to prioritize and put enough emphasis on training, but also deal with everything else they've got going on?
I don't think so. I think I always like competing. I definitely want to always be ready to compete whenever someone like calls upon, or if they were like, oh, do you want to jump in on this competition? And I think like doing a program like that, that's the foundations of anything, right? The strength, the muscular endurance or hypertrophy, if you want to call it, and then aerobic base. So you're ticking all the boxes. You might not be the best at a specific race or sport, which is fine, but you can turn up and do damage, right? And I think that's a really cool position to be in. Like if someone went, do you want to do a high rocks? Yep, I'm ready. Someone went, do you want to go on a CrossFit competition and bang some muscle ups? Yep, I'm ready. Am I going to win any of those competitions? Maybe not, but at least my body's in a position to do them. And, you know, if you're a dad of 2 with a business, I think that's, to be able to do that, it's pretty cool.
Do you ever get hung up on like having to win?
No.
Yeah, I noticed that in you. I like it.
Yeah. I don't know why. I think because I know what I do and what the work I've put in. Yeah, that's a good question. Like I wish sometimes I was like super hungry to just be number 1 all the time. But I'm actually not too fussed sometimes. I kind of know what I want and what I need, and I can sit with that.
Yeah, I think it's a superpower. Because I think there's obviously a lot of people who can't necessarily give the necessary time to try and be super competitive and win, but then they let the fact that they don't win play such a big part, and then their mood and that kind of emotional state.
Yeah.
and how they then show up, even though it's a foregone conclusion that they were never going to win?
I don't know if I don't know if it's just my attachment to not making it in football. Maybe I'm like, I was good, I was really good, but it's not good enough. So it's all right.
Yeah, I like that. What's next for you, bro?
Oh, I don't know. I'm in a position now where, like I said, like I've got, the online space, parenting, the in-person coaching. I'm in a really good position where I've got options to sort of explore and scratch the itch, as you would say, in a few different areas that I want to. So with fitness-wise, like I think training-wise, I'm just going to settle, try and stay in shape all year round, get stronger, maybe do a couple of competitions across the year. And then business-wise, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Like the last 30 days, I've gained so many followers that like this social media thing is like at another level. It's really become its own sort of entity. So it's like, what does that look like? Again, will it stay true to my values? And just play around with some of these things, I'm in no rush. Like the real thing for me at the moment is obviously the kids. So if I can earn enough money, put food on the table, keep my wife happy, and then play around with the business rather than like jumping head first until I know that that's the right thing to do, then we're all good. So I can just sort of have a good time.
Sick. Mate, I think you've got such a good outlook on life. I'm very fortunate to be very close to you, both, personally and professionally. I think what you're doing with social media is fantastic. And like I said, I always use you as the benchmark for how I would want an ambassador or an athlete or anyone to kind of show up for my business. But also I think how people should, if they are going into that world to be a content creator, how they should kind of show up. Super consistent. Like you said, creating content that doesn't feel like it's like taking so much out of their day and putting so much pressure on them, because it enables them to be consistent and also then play from a place of strength and authenticity. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next part of the journey. I think our roads are going to get a little bit closer together, hopefully, but we'll soon see. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on, mate.
Well, thanks for having me. That's been really nice.
Legend.
Really cool. Thank you.